Today I'm going to talk about St. Vincent de Paul. Now, I always think of the store St. Vincent de Paul, but that's actually started by somebody else about 100 years after he lived. He was born in 1580 in a section that's now referred to as France, but he was born near an area where there's a river called the Paul River. So there's some thought that the family name de Paul came from the actual river. But nonetheless, this gentleman grew up as a poor farmer, and his father sold some oxen so that he could go to the seminary. And his main goal was to get out of the farm and to just have a good life. He saw that as a much better situation. So he goes through, the seminary is a little bit of a rougher experience at that time, a lot of conflicts, even amongst the students. But nonetheless, he finishes with that. He's ordained at the age of 19, and at that time, the rule was you couldn't be ordained before 24. So his first assignment got kind of canceled, did a little bouncing around, but he had a real talent for charming some of the more wealthy women to help support him in different endeavors. He ends up with the family of the Gondis, which is connected with the Queen Margaret de Valois. And as a result of this, he's working in this property, tutoring some of the rich persons there, and he's asked to give last rites to a peasant that's actually on the property. So he goes to him and he deals with him, and he's so moved by the fact this peasant says thank you. After he's done the whole service, he says thank you. He goes, I just didn't want to burn in hell because I just haven't been able to get to a priest. This moved this relatively arrogant, not really deep thinking priest into a real appreciation of his ministry. And he realized, wait a second, it's all about the poor. And this is what St. Vincent is so wonderfully known for. It's just a dedication to the poor. He continued to use the women who had helped us provide some good funding for him, but he did wonderful deeds. I'd like to read a little bit from him, because sometimes describing somebody versus hearing their own words is not quite the same. So if you'll pardon me, from my Liturgy of the Word book, I will read a little bit of what he had to say. And this he wrote, I don't have an actual year he wrote it, but anyway, he's living from 1580 to 1660. So anyway, in his prime, he writes this. And he's got both an order, and there's a series of gals that helped him, called, I think, the Poor something or other. I don't have the name of them. But they followed and really became partners with him in this work of charity. So because they got so involved with it, they actually became an order of sisters themselves. But here's his writing. Even though the poor are often rough and underrefined, we must not judge them according to external appearance, nor from some mental gifts that they seem to have received. Now, don't we kind of do that if we see somebody with a homeless sign on the side of the road? On the contrary, if you consider the poor in the light of faith, then you will observe that they are taking the place of the Son of God, who chose to be poor. Although in his person he almost lost the appearance of a man and was considered a fool by the Gentiles and a stumbling block by the Jews, he showed them that his mission was to preach to the poor. He sent me to preach good news to the poor. We also ought to have the same spirit and imitate Christ's action. That is, we must take care of the poor, console them, help them, support their cause. This is why we hope that God will love us for the sake of the poor, so that when we visit the poor and the needy, we try to be understanding where they are concerned. We sympathize with them so fully we can echo Paul's words, I have become all things to all men. It's our duty to prefer the service of the poor to everything else, and to offer such service as quickly as possible. And he talks about there's a lot of rules you should follow, and that's all important. But he also says that charity is greater than any rule. Moreover, all rules must lead to charity. Since she is a noble mistress, Charity, we must do whatever she commands. With renewed devotion, then, we must serve the poor, especially outcasts and beggars. They have been given to us as our masters and our patrons. And that's how he viewed it. As if you have an opportunity to serve the poor, you have an opportunity to see the face of Christ.